Let's put the covers
Can
on
you go
here.
get Virginia, please? Is that Virginia?
Who's up here? That's the volunteer.
Okay. I need to get
We
Virginia.
need to put the covers on here. So, who's going to be standing up here? Because I'm over there at that door. Okay. Here.
So does this one better?
So, Michelle, put one on that one. I didn't do that.
So we need Mark. Mark opens us up. Yeah, he opens us up.
Hello? You guys not getting it from here? Okay. I'll have to exit then.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Harrison. I work here at the United Methodist Building. On behalf of the United Methodist General Board of Church and Society, we welcome you to this place where so many social justice groups have met and continue to meet. Dr. Martin Luther King and John Lewis visited this building. The United Methodist Church affirms the right to vote for all adult citizens as a basic human right. Free and fair elections are a pillar of democracy. They are determined in part through a commitment to the following principles: one person, one vote, fair political representation of all residents, fair and transparent paths to citizenship, transparent and secure election process. Voting rights are more important than the filibuster. We strongly urge the U.S. Senate to pass S1 for the People Act now.
Good afternoon. It's great to have so many of you here during this time to do what we have to do to protect our voting rights. My name is Reverend Dr. Leslie Copeland-Toon. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the National Council of the Churches of Christ in the USA. In my tradition, we would say, this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And while we're not rejoicing that we're out here again to fight for our voting rights, we are rejoicing because we are committed to fight until this work is done. We are determined to keep pushing and to keep fighting and to keep moving forward until everybody is able to vote without obstacles or hindrances. My grandparents understood the importance of voting when they went into the back country. I know somebody here knows about a back country in South Carolina. And with only about a middle school education themselves, they helped others fill out the forms to be able to vote. The KKK rewarded them by burning a cross in front of their lawn, trying to terrorize them, but they continued to help people fill out the form so that they would be able to vote. My mother understood and understands what we're fighting for. As a student at Allen University in Columbia, South Carolina, an HBCU, shout out, she sat in the Woolworth's lunch counter for the right to vote. My children, who both have attended HBCUs, also understand the right to vote because they've registered their peers to vote in the last election on the campuses where they've attended. And I am here today because in spite of the heat, in spite of the time, I understand that this is the fight of our lives, that we can't stop and we won't stop. This is our right, and we are not about to give up now. So will you join me just for a moment of prayer? Oh God, I pray that you would sanctify this space today. We need you to leave eternity to meet us here in time and space. We need you, oh God, to move on behalf of your people, to prick the hearts of senators, to pass S1, the For the People Act, that recognizes the dignity and worth of all of your people. Let them, oh God, have open ears and hearts as well as changed minds. We pray that you would give us strength and courage that we need to endure, to keep pressing, to keep moving forward, no matter what it looks like, no matter the obstacles they put in front of us time and time again. God, help us to continue to fight until our right to vote is protected and secured and our democracy stands firm, and until freedom, liberation, and victory is ours. It's in your matchless name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mark Harrison, and thank you, Reverend Dr. Leslie Copeland-Toon, for your hospitality, for allowing us to come here one more time here at the United Methodist Building, and of course, thank all of you for joining us today. My name is Melanie Campbell. I'm the President and CEO of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and convener of the Black Women's Roundtable. I want to thank Dr. Janetta Cole, who is the President and Chair of the Board of the National Council of Negro Women, for being our partner, co-convener of the Black Women and Allies Voting Rights Call to Action. I would say we say committee, a team. Thank you all for coming out for the third week of our Black Women and Allies Voting Rights Call to Action here on Capitol Hill. My sister and mentor and leader, Cora Masters-Berry, always asks the question, why are we here? Why are we here? Because our voting rights are under attack, and our democracy is under threat from within. We decided that when the U.S. Senate vote that took place a few weeks ago that would not allow, for the People Act could not get a bipartisan vote, could not get 10 Republicans to just cross on over and allow for debate. That was for many of us a line crossed. So for us, and then when the Senate, and this is the thing for us, we're not here for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's not about the weeks. It's about staying vigilant. It's about making sure that the people, we the people's voices are heard by the people that we elect and the people that we didn't elect. Because the people who are in these buildings work for the American people. Not for themselves, not just for their districts, not just for their states, but the United States of America. We will not stand by and watch the work of Ida B. Wells, Mary Church Terrell, Dr. Dorothy Irene Height, Fannie Lou Hamer, and countless other black women, brown women, white women, all kind of women and men go by the wayside. We fought for our access to the ballot box, and it would not go in vain. Voting is not a partisan, racial, or gender issue. It's, as I stated, an American issue. Voting is a cornerstone of our democracy. This is why we're here today, as a coalition fighting for our democracy to survive the threats from within. We, as black women, women of color, women of all races and creeds, we're not going to sit idly by. That's why we're here today. So we say to the U.S. Senate over there, or in that big building over there, do the right thing. Speak up through your vote. You have time before you leave. You get here another week. Talking about weeks. You have time to do the right thing. And the right thing is to vote for the People Act. And when the House gets through with the John Lewis Act, Voting Rights Act, pass that too. Because it is about we the people. So I thank you for listening. And I thank you for being here. And I call on my partner in all of this, my leader and mentor as well, Dr. Janetta Cole. Dr. Cole.
our Shiro, Ella Baker. In those days when black people risked their lives to vote, she said these words: "We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes." We had hoped that it had come, but now we are in a period in my country and yours when the most basic right of American citizens is under vicious attack. The term voter suppression almost seems too mild, because you take my right to vote, you have taken my citizenship and my humanity. And so today, in lockstep with my sister leader, Melanie Campbell, we are here to say enough is enough. Now, Dorothy Irene Height put it this way: during those many years that she led the National Council of Negro Women, black women don't always get to do what they want to do, but they always do what they must do. And so we as black women, in total solidarity with our allies, with the righteous brothers, we are here to say enough is enough. And for anyone who asks, but weren't you here before? And won't you be coming again? Don't you give up? The answer is no, we don't. Because we who believe in freedom will not rest until it comes.
Thank you, Dr. Cole. And we are COVID conscious. Yes, we are. So, everyone has one of these. Next, we will have an inspiration by Halima Peru, soul singer. And then following that, we will have a Sisters Standing United to Save Our Democracy conversation, if you will. So, Sister Halima, and then following her, and I'll come back up, and Dr. Cole, we will hear from Cora Masters-Berry, board member of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, former First Lady of the District of Columbia, and Ms. Carly Fiorina, Chairman Carly Fiorina Enterprises, and former Republican presidential candidate, Dr. Halima.
I was born by the river, whoa, in a little tent, and oh, just like that river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes it is. It's been too hard living, but I ain't ready to die. 'Cause there is so much work to do that it makes me wanna cry. I said it's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes it is. brother and another, and I say, oh, can you help me please? Oh, but sometimes instead of giving me a helping hand, instead of helping me out, instead of helping me, sometimes they just kick me down. They kick me down, right back down, down on my knees. Yeah, sometimes I feel that I cannot last that long. No, no. But that's when I look to the sky and I know that I can keep on going on. Y'all, it's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes it is.
I'm not sure how we got through the earlier civil rights movement, but I know the song helped us to get through. So now, on behalf of my sister leader and co-convener, Melanie Campbell, we are beyond proud to have sisters standing united to save our democracy. We will first hear from the first sister of Washington, D.C., Cora Masters-Berry. You know, when you have certain titles, they don't go away when you're no longer in that position. She is our first sister for life. And then she's going to be followed by a sister who is dear to my heart, Carly Fiorina. And what I want to say about her is simply this. Dr. King said, it doesn't matter where you stand when everything is all right. It matters where you stand in the middle of controversy. And since I first met Carly Fiorina, she's had the courage to stand up and speak out for what is right. And then we will hear from Sister CEO Sheila Katz of the National Council of Jewish Women, who will no doubt affirm the long-standing relationship between black and Jewish people who believe in freedom. And then our sister, Cindy Biadives, another sister CEO of the League of United Latin American Citizens. And then bringing it home for this first section, Virginia Case Solomon, CEO, yes, the League of Women Voters in the United States. Quickly, this is why you will first hear from these women. Because like the African proverb says, when women lead, streams run uphill. Sister First Lady.
Got it. Good afternoon. Well, I'm glad to be back here. I was here a couple of weeks ago. But as Melanie said, my mantra is, why are we here? Why are we here? This was supposed to have been settled in 1869 in the 15th Amendment. Then it got readdressed in 1957, and for sure it got readdressed in 1965 and all of the iterations of it. But we are here, and I don't want anybody to act as if this is normal, because it isn't. As I said in my speech last week, I was there when they had the dogs. I was there when they had the water hoses. I was there when people were hung. I was there when people were killed for just trying to register to vote. And here we are again today. This is not normal. So speaking about my friend that I'm going to introduce, which is really the main reason I'm here at this moment, Carly Fiorina called me one day and said, I'd like you to come to Williamsburg and be on a panel about citizenship. Well, I'm a political science professor, and I can bore everybody to tears about citizenship. I mean, I damn near, excuse the expression, know the Constitution by heart. But I didn't see myself going down to Williamsburg to talk about citizenship. It was kind of like an oxymoron to me. But I came, or I went, and it was amazing. But the most important thing that happened, she was on the panel, a young man from Georgetown, George Washington was on the panel. The question was citizenship. What does it mean? For the African American, I have a premise that is supported by the writings of Frederick Douglass, as well as James Baldwin. Our citizenship depends on who's in the next office. Every rule, every law, every statute that has been passed is at the whim of somebody who just strikes a pen and pushes it out. We had an amazing turnout in the election that just passed, and we were rewarded with voter suppression laws. So the turnout was the problem. There was absolutely no fraud or corruption. They got mad because we got to the polls. So here we are. I just want everybody to say with me, this is not normal.
This is not normal.
We shouldn't be here.
We shouldn't be here.
And now I'll add one other thing that upsets me is, I said this, I was at an event a couple of days ago, and a young woman, powerful young woman from Howard University, called all the ancestors, and then she turned around and looked at me and Melanie and some of the rest of my sisters and said, thank you for your service. We'll take it from here. We're going to keep the fight going. And I sat back and I got very angry. Why are they fighting for voting? How come they're not fighting for climate change or tuition? Why in 2021 are young people being burdened with the battle of fighting something that should be our basic human right? So I'll say again, this is not normal. This is the most critical time of our lives. Voting is not only our right, it is our power, and we cannot let it be taken away, with me, again. That's all everybody say again. Again. All right? The issue of voting rights is an American issue. It is a moral issue, and every American who claims to believe in our country and in our Constitution ought to be outraged by the blatant attempts to take our voting away again. We were here in protest. We're back. We'll keep going. We're in the fight of our lives for democracy. And as I look out today, I am so glad to see the allies. Look at people of conscience, people of more determination, has no race, no color, no ethnicity, no anything, because you are all what? Americans. Now, in that vein, I want to introduce someone who I consider a sister. We're kind of like an odd couple. She's a conservative, white Republican. I'm a black woman who's so far to the left I'm falling off the side of the river. But some kind of way we found the common ground. And the most common ground we found is the common decency. So I'm very pleased and honored to introduce her. And I want to start by saying Frederick Douglass stated that there is no black problem. Now listen to this. The only problem we have is whether American people have loyalty enough, honor enough, patriotism enough to live by their own constitution. Carly Fiorina does that in her own way, and in a very impactful way, my sister Carly Fiorina.
Well, it is my honor to join all these sisters and all of you today. The odd couple, maybe, but Cora Masters Berry and I are friends. We've had very different lived experiences, and as she alluded, we don't see eye to eye on everything. And yet we agree on many things, and we agree on the most important things. I think America is a lot like Cora and me. Our friends and neighbors and fellow citizens are all kinds of people in all kinds of places with all kinds of lived experiences. We don't agree on everything. But when we step away from the din of our divisive politics, when we disconnect from social media and its amplification, its magnification of discord, of conflict and controversy, I think most Americans agree on many things. And I think we agree on the most important things. Most Americans agree that every adult citizen has a right to vote, regardless of circumstances, regardless of personal characteristics or party affiliation. The right to vote has been hard fought and hard won. And this is a country where most of us believe in moving forward, not backward. After an election that has been called the most secure in our nation's history by both Republican and Democrat election officials, most Americans understand the outcomes of the 2020 election are legitimate. Americans agree that elections must be secure and that a person who votes must be who they claim to be. But many Americans of all races are justifiably suspicious when sweeping so-called voter security measures are passed along purely partisan lines on the premise that an election has been stolen and that massive fraud has occurred. When Republican officials, from former Attorney General William Barr to Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, hold up these most recent elections as transparent and efficient, when they reassure us that fraud did not affect the outcome of our elections, does it make any sense at all that our most sacred right to vote is becoming harder, not easier? How can we justify legislation that restricts and reduces the number of polling places, for example, in dense urban areas where many people of color live, and shortens the hours these polling places are open? Does it make any sense that voting should be restricted to as short a time period as possible, and that citizens must stand in line for hours at a time? How can we justify that as these citizens wait to vote, they may no longer be offered a chair to sit or a bottle of water to drink? It makes no sense, and it cannot be justified. And that is why I stand today with my friend Cora, my sisters, all my fellow citizens who are gathered here. The right to vote is not a Democrat or a Republican issue. It is not a black or a white issue. The right to vote is an American issue and sacred for every citizen. Together, we must move forward, not backward. Like most Americans, I support the 1965 Voting Rights Act. In 2006, the Voting Rights Act was reauthorized for 25 years. A Republican majority leader brought H.R. 9 to the Senate floor. The bill had passed the House with 390 yeas and only 33 nays. H.R. 9 was passed by the Senate 98-0. A Republican president signed the bill into law. There are basic standards that must be upheld in any election. Congress should require federal approval of any changes in election laws that make it harder to exercise our right to vote. I don't believe any new election laws should be passed by a single party, even when one party is trying to undo the damage caused by the other party, because partisanship anytime, anywhere, undermines citizens' confidence in our democracy. Nevertheless, there is enough agreement over there that protection of everyone's voting rights is vital to our democracy that we can move forward, and I urge Congress to do so. Ours was intended to be a nation led by citizens, not politicians. We cannot just leave the talking to politicians because it too quickly devolves into posturing, not progress. And so I am proud to stand and speak with my fellow citizens today. Every adult citizen has the right to vote. That right must be accessible to all, protected for all, and defended by all. Those who attempt to curtail these rights must be called out and held to account. Let us not move backward divided. Let us instead, as Americans, like Cora and me, celebrate all that we share and the ideals and principles upon which we agree. Let us together move forward. Thank you so much.
Hi there. I'm honored to join you all today. My name is Sheila Katz, and I'm the CEO of the National Council of Jewish Women, a more than 100-year-old Jewish social justice organization with 200,000 advocates around the country advocating on behalf of women, children, and families in the United States. I stand here in full recognition of my privilege as a white, able-bodied woman to lend my voice in this critical time when voting rights are under threat in this country. Since our founding, and in particular over the past several years, National Council of Jewish Women advocates across the country have dedicated themselves to promoting and protecting the right to vote and serving as allies alongside our Black and brown neighbors, family, and friends in the work to bring about a more equitable and just world. In Jewish tradition, we are taught to hold the bad and the good at the same time, celebrating moments of joy and success while recognizing that there is so much still left undone in a world in need of healing. Never has this felt more true. The 2020 election saw record numbers of voter turnout throughout our country, even amid a global pandemic, which disrupted our lives and increased economic insecurity for those who were already vulnerable, especially for women, and specifically women of color. Now we're facing a Congress that refuses to act to pass necessary legislation that would protect voters from unfair burdens and increased barriers to accessing their constitutional right to vote. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof, or justice, justice shall you pursue, from the book of Deuteronomy, is the guiding imperative of the National Council of Jewish Women. Our tradition teaches that we have an obligation to secure access to health care, welcome immigrants, care for those in poverty, ensure fair wages, and so much more. And the way we do that in this country is by voting for representatives who share those values. Our vote is our voice, and we are obligated to stand up and fight back against attacks on the rights of voters. We are here today to bring attention to the dozens of laws that make it more difficult to vote, especially for people of color, people with disabilities, women, the elderly and young, and LGBTQ identifying individuals. To make it clear that voter suppression most harms those who are already marginalized and vulnerable. Our democracy is strongest when it reflects the diversity of its people. The right to vote is protective of all other rights. Without access to the ballot, we can't elect lawmakers who represent our communities and our needs. Access to abortion, citizenship for dreamers, LGBTQ equality, sensible gun laws, all are beyond our reach if we do not have the right to vote. NCJW, along with our partners here today and those who cannot be with us in person, will continue to urge Congress to pass the For the People Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and D.C. statehood to restore and strengthen access to the polls for all Americans. Until all of us are free, none of us are free. Until all people can vote, our democracy remains broken. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. My name is Cindy Benavides, and I serve as the CEO of the League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC. LULAC is the oldest and largest national Latino civil rights organization in the country. I want to thank the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, Melanie Campbell and Dr. Cole, for your leadership. We need more of your light to uplift the plight of our communities. Gracias. Hermanas and sisters, we stand with you in solidarity. Today, we stand on the hallowed ground where our great civil rights leaders of this struggle for justice and equality can still be seen with the sight of our souls. As an ally, we have seen the pain that our communities have suffered and the sacrifices that Black women have made across the country for generations. As I remember what I learned as a student at Virginia State University and think of all the great leaders that were taken too soon from us, their great words still echo if we listen with the beating of our hearts, for we know the great price and sacrifices our communities have paid and continue to pay today. And where we, as they did in generations past, still cry out for the glorious, soaring feeling of freedom, true freedom. We still yearn for true basic human dignity and respect, and to participate in our democracy. And to the Congress members and senators who are standing across the street, let our people vote. And even when some seek to use our ethnicity and race as a weapon against us, we will not stay silent. We reclaim our voices, for we too are American. Somos Americanos. Our greatest act of defiance is to vote. Our greatest way to protest is to vote. And our greatest way to rise up, represent our community, is to show up and vote. We will not stand idle because we know the importance of the For the People Act. To our members of Congress, to our senators, we are demanding that you put our people first and not your personal interest nor your political party. We are demanding that you act with fairness for all and not for the few. We are demanding that you vote in favor for the People Act now and stop stalling progress. And know that we are watching. We refuse to go backwards. We're not going to that America again. Our actions today will determine our tomorrow. Let's together reaffirm our nation's truth that guides us through our dark alleys. Out of many, we are one. Let us together create a new narrative and place our ordinary acts into the hands of an extraordinary God. And one day too, not too far, we shall overcome. For we soar like eagles even when we are oppressed. And when they tell us no, and in the words of Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta, we say, sí se puede. Yes, we can. Sí se puede. Sí se puede. And in the 92-year tradition of LULAC and of our motto as we protect and defend our Latino community, all for one and one for all. Gracias.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Melanie and Dr. Cole, and all the Black women leaders and allies for hosting this urgent Speak Out. I'm honored to join you and to stand in solidarity with you. I am Virginia K. Solomon, CEO of the League of Women Voters of the United States. Now, there are some who are asking why we are doing this. They even call us alarmists. They say we are overreacting and that democracy is working just fine. They point to the last election and say that democracy did what it was supposed to do and that it worked. I disagree. Democracy prevailed in the last election despite its dysfunction. Because those of us here today and our partners in the civil rights, legal, and voting rights community, we made it do what it was supposed to do. We, the people. We made democracy work despite all of the attempts that were made to prevent that from happening. And now we see the backlash from those efforts. The attacks on voting rights in the 2020 election season and its aftermath, which resulted in political violence at our beautiful U.S. Capitol, are proof and make absolutely clear how urgent and necessary it is to ensure that our democracy is protected. Today, we face attempts to limit voters' access to the polls with attacks designated to undermine the integrity of election results. We see the continued systemic disenfranchisement of Black voters, brown voters, indigenous voters, Asian voters, women, the disabled, senior citizens, and young people in state legislatures all around the country. These anti-voter measures go against everything we stand for. And with more popping up every day, we may even at times feel powerless. But we are far from powerless. In fact, we are powerful. We are full of power, and that is why we are here today, to use our power and collective strength to call for the Senate to pass the For the People Act, to put an end to the filibuster that is being used to block this legislation that both Republican and Democratic voters want. So what we want to know today, our question today is, who in Congress will accept the challenge and be our legislative champions? Because we do not want to look back on this moment and wish that we had done more. Now is the time to act. Now is the time to pass the For the People Act, and now is the time to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. I am so proud. I am so proud to stand with these incredibly amazing Black women leaders today as we engage in this fight together. Thank you all.
Thank you. So we've had the conversation. Thank you, sisters, standing united to save our democracy. Can I give the sisters another hand? All of our sisters. So now we move to the question, and let me step back. I want to thank all of our partners, those who are here, those who are watching, those who are making those phone calls all over the country today from 9 to 5, calling the U.S. Senate and telling them, pass the For the People Act now, end, amend, reform, do whatever you need to do to pass the bill when it comes to the filibuster. So if you want to know who we are, go to blackwomentake.action.org, blackwomentake.action.org. So wherever you're watching, those out here with us and those who are watching through these wonderful brothers and sisters out here who are putting this out to the American people, you can get involved in some way. You have the power. You are we the people. So go to blackwomentake.action.org, sign up, make a phone call, show up in D.C. next time we come for a call to action. do whatever you can, but tell your U.S. senators that you want For the People Act passed, and when the John Lewis bill comes up, you want that passed as well. Thank you. So now, how we got here. How we got here. Voting rights eroding across the nation. There's about 50, right? Over 50 plus Texans who are freedom fighters. They're elected officials, but they're also freedom fighters. They believe in this democracy so much that, in my opinion, and many of us, they sacrifice their personal lives to leave Texas because of all of the voter suppression and anti-voting legislation that's being attempted to be passed in the state of Texas. So we bring on our delegation again, and we thank you for being with us. State Representative Ron Reynolds, First Vice Chair, Texas Legislative Black Caucus. State Representative Gina Hinojosa, thank you, sister. Texas District 49, Texas State Legislature. State Representative Jasmine Crockett, Texas District 100, Texas State Legislator. And just found out she's also a SORA, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Come right up and tell us how we got here.
Well, good afternoon. I am Ron Reynolds, and I'm proud to be standing here with two amazing colleagues from the state of Texas. And I want to thank Melanie Campbell and all of the wonderful, phenomenal women leaders across this country for standing up for our democracy. You know, far too often in history, we give credit and credence, as it should be, to our former hero, Congressman John Lewis, who made good and necessary trouble and who gave his life fighting for democracy, who literally put it all on the line when he marched with Dr. King and others from Selma to Montgomery. And we all know that he was beaten and almost died as he marched on Bloody Sunday. But the history books don't often give enough credit to the women of the movement. The women of the movement were just as instrumental, and I would argue even more instrumental, in the civil rights movement. And I think of Amelia Borton, who too, just like John Lewis, was in Selma, and who a lot of times the history books don't talk about her being one of the leaders and organizers who helped put that historic march and movement into place. It was people like Dorothy Height and Fannie Lou Hamer and Coretta Scott King, because yes, Dr. King did so many wonderful things, but he would not have been able to achieve even a fraction of those things, per his own words, if it wasn't for his right hand, Coretta Scott King, holding it down. So I stand here today as a brother, as a man, as a proud husband and father of two wonderful daughters, standing in solidarity with the women of the movement, women like Melanie Campbell and others who are fighting and who are speaking truth to power, who are advocating for the most fundamental, precious right that we have as Americans, and that is the right to vote. And no, we should not be encumbered by voter suppression laws. We thought we had overcome and achieved when our own Texas President, Lyndon Baines Johnson, almost 56 years to this day, on August the 6th of 1965, signed into law the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which ended Jim Crow laws, ended poll taxes and literacy tests, ended the black codes and the grandfather clauses, all the things that suppressed and limited black and brown folks. And that's why I'm proud to be here today, standing with two dynamic legislators from Texas who fled Austin to break quorum, to end a voter suppression Jim Crow 2.0 bill that was styled from former President Trump's big lie of voter fraud. You know, we all know there was no massive voter fraud. There was a record turnout. Americans of all colors, races, and hues coming together and exercising their right to vote. And he lost a legitimate election. And now, here we are, having to relitigate a dark day in our country. And we will not go back to those days of dark. We will not allow them to turn the clock back. and allow black and brown folks to be disenfranchised. So yes, we urge Congress, specifically the United States Senate, because the House has already done their part. Senators need to be on the right side of history and pass H.R. 1, the For the People Act, and advance, eventually, H.R. 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Thank you so much. All the women and the brothers are going to continue to stand with you. God bless you. And I'm looking forward to now receiving Representative Gina Hinojosa out of Travis County, Austin, Texas. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Reynolds. You know, Ron Reynolds, this is in the history of the Texas legislature, we have broken quorum 5 times ever in our existence. We have been involved in 2 of those quorum breaks. The first one, Representative Reynolds was the first to say out loud to the rest of the caucus, weren't we talking about breaking quorum to kill this bill? Well, because it's hard. It's really hard to do, and we got some pushback. And what we decided to do was form a coalition, a summit of our black and brown members to work in coalition, because what the Republican attack on our voting rights is an attack on multiracial democracy. That's all it is. And if people think they don't have power in our government, if people think they don't have power in our country, in our elections, then ask yourselves why it's a priority for Republicans to take your right to vote. It is because you have power. It is because we have power, and they're trying to take it back. So I just want to end with this one point. People ask, what's so bad about the bills you're trying to fight in Texas? We have an indicted attorney general in Texas, a Republican indicted attorney general by the name of Ken Paxton, who during the last election in 2020 stopped Harris County, where Houston, Texas is, from sending out just applications to vote by mail to only eligible voters. He stopped them, and he bragged about a month ago, had he not done that, Trump would have lost Texas. That's right. That's what this is all about. They're trying to control the outcome of elections. They're trying to hold on to power. They're trying to wrestle it away from us, and we cannot stop it. Look, we're Democrats in Texas. We're used to losing. We have to fight scrappy to get anything done. We come here, all we see is possibility. All we see is hope. It can get done here. We're here to remind Congress. We're here to remind the U.S. Senate. Then they can get this done, but it's going to take all of us to make it happen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Gina. Never mind. I know you don't have COVID. I'm State Representative Jasmine Crockett. And to say I've been frustrated is putting it lightly. To say I've been frustrated is putting it lightly. You see, I've come to the conclusion that some people just can't Google the definition of suppression. So what I'm going to do is read for you what it means to suppress a vote, and then I'm going to throw that into context for why we are fighting so hard. So for those that don't have access to Google, suppression is the act of keeping something from happening. It's that simple. So let me tell you something. We're not going to talk about alternative facts because that's all we've been talking about. It's an alternative fact that there was voter suppression. I'm sorry, it's an alternative fact that this bill is anything but voter suppression. To be clear, there was an offer made by the lieutenant governor of the state of Texas to the tune of $1 million for anyone that could point out voter fraud in the state of Texas. Now, that seems like something that would encourage a lot of people to stand up and say something. Somehow, he still hasn't paid out that $1 million. When we talk to representatives from the Attorney General's office and they give us the numbers may be something around 20 or so cases of voter fraud that were prosecuted in the state of Texas out of 11 million votes that were cast. I may not be a mathematician, but y'all do the math and y'all tell me, which number is bigger? 22 out of 11 million, or say the 700 deaths that we had in the state of Texas because we couldn't keep the lights on, or say the over 50,000 people that have lost their lives to COVID, yet we have a governor that's saying, hey, schools, you can't do a mask mandate. Let me tell you, the priorities are not for the people in the state of Texas. The priorities are all placed on power in the state of Texas. And right now, those elected politicians who I guess they are trying to say that they are illegitimate because now all of a sudden we need to change the rules. I don't believe I'm illegitimate. This is a power play, and they are trying to suppress the votes. This is why we never had a maximum on the number of hours that someone could vote. Yet now that black and brown people overwhelmingly voted after hours, they said, wait a minute, y'all voting too much. We need to bring those hours on down. We need to codify that. In fact, I don't know of a legislature that does have a maximum. This is going to be a terrible trend in this country if they are allowed to proceed. You see, Texas got nervous that other counties would follow Harris County. More black and brown people would show up. More people that are working second and third shift would show up. And so instead, they decided what they were going to do is shut them down. That is the definition of suppression. And I'm telling you, we're not going back. This bill is going to die on the 7th of August in the State House. And guess what? We have come here because this was the only place that we could work. So for the Republicans that don't get it, I am doing the work of my constituency. I am speaking up for people who you want to silence. That's all you've done. But I wasn't elected to do your bidding. I was elected to fight for my constituents. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And I can guarantee you, they will put me back into my office because I have done exactly what I was elected to do.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Texas, can we give our Texas delegation, our freedom fighters from the great state of Texas a hand? Thank you so very much. So, thank you all. And now we'll hear, so in 2013, there was a case that took place over in the building to my left, your right, the U.S. Supreme Court, that really started with the Shelby versus Holder case that struck down the core power of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So we have a delegation here from Alabama who will come and share their remarks about why, not just how we got here, but what we must do to stop the voting rights erosion across the nation. So I call on my sister Letitia Jackson, convener, the Southern Alabama Black Women's Roundtable, Honorable Sheila Tyson, convener of the Alabama Coalition on Black Civic Participation, Alabama Black Women's Roundtable, also a commissioner in Jefferson County, Alabama, Camille Goodman, state coordinator, Alabama Black Youth Vote, Faith Morris, representative, South Alabama Black Women's Roundtable, Black Youth Vote, and Faya Aura Rose Torre. Is she here? Is Rose here? Okay. Can we get Rose? Where's Rose? Can we get Rose? All right. And Rose, who's president of the Selma Bridge Crossing Jubilee and founder of the National Voting Rights Museum. So we'll bring up Letitia and Sheila, Camille, Faith, and Fire Rose Torre. Did you all get one of those? Did I give you this match? Y'all come on. Go ahead.
Thank you, Melanie, our awesome, fearless leader who's always taken a stand for what's right and being so selfless and challenging us to do the same. I'm Letitia Daniels Jackson, convener of the South Alabama Black Women's Roundtable. And in Alabama, we know a little bit about voter suppression. I stand here today on the shoulders of my mother, Ruth Daniels, who joined our ancestors at the age of 97 last year. I stand on her shoulders because she always reminded us of the time when she couldn't vote. The fact that once she got the opportunity, she never took it for granted. Even to the point where she quit a job when they would not allow her to leave to go to vote. And she was the only breadwinner and had 5 kids at home. It was that serious. So voting has never been optional for me, for my siblings, or for my family. It was instilled as a sacred obligation. Any attack on our access to the ballot is a direct attack on me, on my family, and on my community. We will not stand silently by and allow it to be eroded. Our ancestors gave their very lives for us to have the right to vote, and we are prepared to do nothing less. It is that serious. We are prepared to fight as long and as hard as it takes, because we will not allow the clock to be turned back. Jim Crow will never live again as it has in Alabama for so many generations. We need easier access to the ballot, not harder. This is our democracy. This is our country. Our ancestors built it on their backs, with their blood and with their very lives. This democracy belongs to us. We have paid the price for it. So to the U.S. Senate and to the House of Representatives, we say, do your job. Black women all over this nation worked hard to protect our democracy, and we do not intend for our vote to be taken for granted ever again. Let me repeat that. We will not let our work and our vote be taken for granted ever again. Pass the For the People Act now, and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act now. Thank you.
We're not going to let Alabama turn us round, turn us round, turn us round. We're not going to let Alabama turn us round. We're going to keep on marching, keep on talking, marching down to freedom land. I had to open up with that. I am Sheila Tyson, the convener for the Alabama Coalition on Black Civic Participation. Alabama keep showing you their hands, and sometimes I think society wants to turn their head and in denial of the racism that go along with this state. In the 60s, they showed you what they was about when they cut the hose pipe and sucked the dogs on us, biting and killing our ancestors, hanging them from trees. I feel like it's been overlooked. Now they have came back when they seen, and they can actually see that we are winning. They know we are winning. They never seen the black population go out and vote like they voted in 2020. They created bills that are already on the book. What state does that? They created HB 285, defining polling precincts, already exists. Created HB 167, prohibiting voting in multiple states, already on your voter's registration card. Those two votes was just a diversion, because they see the senior citizens are voting in so large a numbers with absentees till they created a law that don't even exist in Alabama, curbside voting. We don't have curbside voting. So how can you stop curbside voting when it don't exist? But we was voting in so large a numbers, they had to come up with something. We always, in Alabama, they use us for suckers. They put in voting laws that don't exist, making us look like exactly what we are, the most racist state in this United States. But this right here was the bill that they put in, HB 314. and it was to stop our young people from voting. That bill right there give them the right to go to the post office. Do you hear me? The post office to check where your mail goes. And if it doesn't go to the same place that's on your voter's registration card, you will be purged from the list. Majority of the people this will affect is our college students. It will hurt our college students. We have 14 HBCUs in the state of Alabama. We have gotten more than 80% of them as voting sites. Our students are voting in such high numbers. You can tell when you're winning in Alabama. You can tell when you're winning in Alabama. They don't have the hose pipes no more. They don't have the dogs no more. The police can't beat us down no more. So the first thing they're going to work on is our voting rights. But I can tell you now, our black sisters, we got to stand. Our black daughters, we got to stand. Our black nieces, we got to stand. Our black grandmamas, we got to stand. And we got to stand tall, and we got to stand hard, and we cannot go back.
Hi, my name is Faith Morris, and I am a member of the Black Youth Vote in Alabama. I'm here today to speak to you about the voting suppression. As a young person in our generation, I feel as though we can come together, we can stand together, and we can fight as much as we want to, but we cannot fight against people who constantly, persistently want to bring us down. But we can continuously do what we can and try and fight and go and do what we can to push forward, to be the future. We are the future. We are the youth. We are the future. We are the youth. And we need to stand and we need to speak and we need to make sure that they hear us. We can, we will, and we will constantly, persistently fight as we should. As we stand here today, as you hear me, we shall fight, we shall conquer, and we shall vote.
Yes. All right.
John Lewis lived by being in good trouble. In his speech in 1963, he quoted, "This is it." Later in the year of 2020, he quoted before his passing, "Go for it." My name is Camille J. Goodman, a proud sophomore at the Alabama State University, a proud coordinator of Black Youth Vote for the state of Alabama. I am the next generation of good trouble. This is the time. This is it for change, and I'm going for it. As a new voter to the polls, I take every chance to obtain and exercise our 14th Amendment right. From voter registration, marches, and meetings, I take time to educate my peers on voting and voter suppression. John Lewis acted upon good trouble. He showed the importance of utilizing our 14th Amendment right, what it means to be young, educated, and an African American leader. John made it clear that voter suppression is a historical block for African Americans. As we take a glance at the 60s, where voter suppression and black people were face to face, black people had to state the United States preamble from the beginning to the end. Black people had to name the mayor, the governor, and all counties and much more. One wrong answer to either suppression test stopped my ancestors from voting. Fast forward to now, where voter suppression is supposedly not existing. Well, it is. Republican lawmakers and their irresponsible laws make voting a continued barrier for African Americans. They make it difficult for early and absentee voters, gerrymandering through districts, and controlling our exercise of our 14th Amendment right. To stop voter suppression, we need for 2 acts to pass in the Senate. The 2 acts I will be getting in good trouble for includes the For the People Act. This act will enlarge early and mail voting platforms, limits on campaign finances, and lastly, require all presidential candidates to release their tax returns. And lastly, the John Lewis Act. This act will defeat voter suppression supporters and doers behind the scenes. This is created to design a network of needs and wants for the African American communities. This will close the gap between national leaders and African American voters. The John Lewis Act will lastly let America see a fair race between Democrat candidates. I challenge Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to join the Good Trouble movement to help good troublemakers like me continue exercising their 14th Amendment right. For those watching, I want to create a hashtag, the Good Trouble Movement. Put that in the comments. Lastly, I'm here, America. I'm here, Joe and Kamala. I'm here, Capitol Hill. I'm here, Black Youth Vote. I'm here, Black Coalition. I'm here, Black Women's Roundtable. I'm here for the good trouble. I am the next generation for good trouble. Now I am going for it. Thank you.
All right, give us some love. Give us some love. Our young people, our young leaders, give them some love, y'all. Give them some more love. No justice. No justice. No democracy. No democracy. I am Faria Toure, coming from Selma, Alabama. I am the founder of the Bridge Crossing Jubilee, the National Voting Rights Museum, and I'm also the leader of the Vote or Die campaign that led to the defeat of a pedophile in Alabama, none other than Roy Moore. Give it up. I want to first congratulate my sisters. I am so proud of Melanie and the leadership of this organization. I also want to recognize a hero that we lost this week, Bob Moses. Bob Moses. What a hero, what a giant. And I would be less than true to my cause if I did not mention some of the martyrs of the movement, because without them, we would not have had 36 years of democracy, because that's all we had, brothers and sisters. Only 36 or 38 years of democracy, because when the Declaration of Independence was passed, no working person, black or white, could vote. Not even men in the armed forces could vote if they were poor and not landowners. And even after the Civil War, black men got the right to vote with the 15th Amendment, but not a woman in this country, rich or poor, could vote. And when the 19th Amendment was passed that gave women the right to vote, black women could not vote until 1965, when black women and black men and righteous white people marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, named to honor the Grand Dragon of the Klan. Only then, after Bloody Sunday, did we get the right to vote. But people were already working and dying like Bob Moses in Mississippi. Let me call out their names. We call out the names of people who have been lost like George Floyd. But let us not forget the persons who died at the hands of the Klan and people in government and governors like the governor of Alabama. So let us call out the name of Jimmy Lee Jackson, Viola Luzo, Reverend James Reed, Jonathan Daniels, Chainer, Goodwin, and Swan. Excuse me, y'all. Got a tongue. The Mississippi people who died. Thank you. We must always remember our heroes and sheroes. Sheila's already broken down what's going on in Alabama. Everything y'all are fighting for, against, Alabama's already done. Do you know there's not a single white Democrat in state government in Alabama? Do you know
that there's not one white Democrat in state government. The only white Democrat in state government is from a majority black district. So Alabama, we're already behind the eighth ball. And if we are to win this fight and to bring about a real democracy, because we have not known democracy but for 37 years, and that's between 1965 and the time when that Supreme Court, with the help of a black man, God bless him, voted to disregard Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. And then 3 weeks ago, that same Supreme Court came back and took away Section 2. So we are in a fight for democracy. But let me say this as I go to my seat, because I don't want to disobey my leader. If you really want democracy, it will not come easy. So many people have already died for it. But if we don't recognize that we never had a real democracy, except for those 30-some years, then we will not fight as hard as we need to fight for it. I heard my leader earlier say that she who believes in freedom cannot rest until he comes. And we cannot rest. We will not rest. I'm 76 years old, but I ain't no ways tired, and I'm going to still fight because I know this is a vote or die time. And if we don't fight for the vote, democracy, the little that we have left will die. So she who believes in freedom cannot rest. She who believes in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Come on, sister, sing with me. She who believes in freedom cannot rest. She who believes in freedom cannot rest until it kill the filibuster and save democracy. Kill the filibuster and save democracy. I can't hear you. Kill the filibuster and save democracy.
Kill the filibuster, save democracy.
Thank you.
We could not have these sisters and our allies who are on the front lines in southern states. We've heard now from Texas. We've heard now from Alabama. But now we got to hear from Georgia. And so we are going to call forth Sister Felicia Davis, convener of the Clayton County, Georgia Black Women's Roundtable. She is the executive director of the HBCU Green Fund. And then we're going to listen and be moved by Mary Pat Hector, State Coordinator, Georgia Black Youth Vote. She is with the Georgia Coalition for the Peoples. And then Fatima Neon, Black Youth Vote Fellow from Clayton County, Georgia. And Jared Sawyer, Jr., State Coordinator of Georgia BYV and HBCU Green Fund. And I really got my sisters and brothers a little out of order, but they know what to do. They just immediately redo and comment. Yeah, y'all know what to do. But Sean Kelly, Black Youth Vote Fellow, Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda, Cobb County, Georgia. We know without our young'uns, there will be no change. And the change we need is for them as well.
Thank you, Dr. Cole.
Okay, so I'm here, first of all, Felicia Davis, convener Clayton County Black Women's Roundtable. And we all know Clayton County is what did it November 3rd. And then the rest is history. So I didn't want to use time today to talk about the specific things that are going on in Georgia. Because the bottom line is, it's a rollback. All the progress that we've made nationally, there's an attempt to turn back the clock. And so some of us thought that we had arrived at the destination. We thought all we had to do was get people registered and turn out to vote. And we focused most of our time and attention on making sure that every eligible voter was registered and motivated to turn out and vote on the election day. But we find that there was a whole other sinister plan afoot. And the calculation has been made that power will rest with the majority. And so there's an effort to reconfigure what the majority will look like now that it's increasingly black, brown, female, LGBTQ, etc. So those of us who have worked on voting rights for decades, we now understand that we won but a battle. And we see how far the trajectory is, how long that moral arc might be. And so with that in mind, we reinforce to bring the next generation to pass over. We're not passing a torch or a baton. We are working with them to stand beneath them, behind them, in front of them. And with that, I'm bringing up to the mic Mary Pat Hector, the Black Youth Vote Coordinator in Georgia that works with the People's Agenda. She will bring that message, and then after that, Reverend Jared Sawyer will speak to bring the Black Youth Vote message from Georgia. And so with that, and these other young people whom they will mention are flanking Black Youth Vote Georgia, and they are taking the movement forward. Mary Pat?
Thank you. Good afternoon. You know, when Melanie Campbell and Cora Masters-Berry call, you just answer the phone. But I want to just open up this by doing something that I do every time I speak. So if you can, repeat after me. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and protect each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Hello, my name is Mary Pat Hector, and I'm joined today alongside leaders from the Georgia Black Youth Vote and our partners, the Georgia Fellows at Rise today. We're standing here not only on the shoulders of John Lewis, but we can't forget about Fannie Lou Hamer, Mary Church Terrell, Ella Baker, Ida B. Wells, and so many more. I don't know about you, but I'm standing here today in the spirit of black women that have given their lives for us to have this moment. I'm here to advocate for the People Act and the John Lewis Act to be passed. To our elected officials, voting rights is not a partisan issue, it is a basic right. And to the young people around the country watching this right now, I have to say that in 2020, yes, we made history by having the largest youth voter turnout our country has ever seen. But this is our Selma moment. Pay attention. While we were marching to the polls and out organizing in the middle of a pandemic, when we didn't know where our next meal was going to come from because many of us lost our jobs, while we were organizing to protect the lives of black and brown people in this country, we were not aware that there were private meetings in high places like Capitol Hill that said, never again. Listen, again, this is our Selma moment. Young people, pay attention. just know what's happening. It's not just happening in states like Georgia and Alabama. It's happening all across this country. And you also need to be on the right side of history. Know what's happening and support organizations like Black Youth Vote, the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, and others. Thank you so much. But before I jump off, I do have to acknowledge young people like Larnay Satchel, Isaac Mbucho, Fatim, Sean Kelly, and others that are here today that are doing that great work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary Pat Hector. And in Georgia, our young people are not just organized, they are also prayed up. And I cannot emphasize enough what the spirit of prayer and the focus that prayer brings forth. And the fact that we also have a young organizer who is also a minister, who last night in preparation for today, they had Bible study at 7 p.m. on Zoom. So that's the spirit that these young people are moving in. So before we march, we pray. While we're marching, we pray. When we get there, we pray. When we win, we pray. So with that, I bring up Reverend Jared Sawyer Jr., Black Youth Vote, Georgia.
When I say black youth, you say vote. Black youth, vote. Black youth. Vote. Let's try it again. When I say black youth, you say vote. Black youth, vote. Black youth. Vote. My name is Reverend Jared Sawyer Jr. I'm a Black Youth Vote coordinator from the state of Georgia. And I stand here, we're all here coming from the state of Georgia, the battleground state, because we are in a state of emergency. We're here because our vote is our voice. We are here because, in fact, we gather in the spirit of John Lewis, in the spirit of C.T. Vivian, in the spirit of Joseph Lowry and countless others, in the spirit of Rita Samuels, in the spirit of many others. We're here because just like in 1965 when they knew that this was a moment that was too important to just pass by, this is our Selma moment. The Voting Rights Act passed 55 years ago. Voting rights are still under attack. Voting rights under attack nationwide as states like mine, right in Georgia. These laws lead to significant burdens for eligible voters trying to exercise their most fundamental right to vote. These measures include cuts to early voting and voter ID laws and purges of voter rolls, and our democracy is at stake. And we can no longer be silent or just go about his business as usual. We must stand and sound the alarm and demand that Congress does what they are supposed to do and protect the right to vote. It's time to end the filibuster before it's too late. So we as Black Youth Vote Georgia have traveled all the way here to D.C. to make it clear that when our rights are under attack, we've got to fight back with everything that we've got. Our voting rights are under attack because they know that when we organize, when we mobilize, when we vote, we have power. They don't want us to have power over our circumstances and over our communities. Let us make it very clear that nothing will stop us when we know that we have to do exactly what our ancestors did. We won't be the generation that left less rights for the generations after us. We can't let them take us back generations. In the words of John Lewis, we're not going back. We're only moving forward. So as a young preacher, walking in the footsteps of those such as Reverend Joseph Lowry, I echo his words right now in this moment. I tell you that we've come too far. We've marched too long. We prayed too hard. We've wept too profusely and too bitterly. We've bled too profusely, and we've died too young to let anybody turn back the clock on our journey to justice. So pass the For the People Act right now, and we're not going back. We're only moving forward. When I say black youth, you say vote. Black youth, vote. Black youth. Vote.
Georgia. Can't sing. On my mind. Thank you, Georgia. Thank you, Georgia.
Thank you.
Say black youth what? Vote. Black youth what? Vote. All right. Thank you, Georgia. Thank you. Thank you for all who spoke to tell us how we got here. Voting rights eroding across the nation. So now we're here. I'll take a bit of inspiration from my sister Halima Peru. Is Halima here? So everybody all right? So those who are out there listening, first of all, Dr. Cole, come on, please. Thank you. I want to thank you again for being my sister, my leader, my mentor, so many decades. And I thank God that we were able to connect on this with the National Council of Negro Women and all that you do. So we're going to go ahead and move to the next. Okay, we're going to take an inspiration break from our sister Halima Peru.
Okay. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, and above only skies. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. Oh, it's easy if you try. Nothing to kill or to die for, and no injustice for you and I. Oh, imagine all the people living together in peace. Yes, you may say I'm a dreamer, oh, but I'm not the only one. Maybe someday you can join us, and the world can come together as one. Oh, you may say I'm a dreamer. Oh, I know I'm not the only one. Oh, maybe one day you can join us, and the world can come together as one, and the world can come together as one, and the world can come together as one. Amen.
Thank you, Sister Halima. Can we just give our Sister Halima for soul singer, spiritual anointed sister. So Dr. Cole, we're almost there. We're almost there. So the next phase of this discussion that we're having, this speak out that we're having, is called We the People Stand United for Voting Rights. So Dr. Cole, the next group that comes up is going to be our sister Robin Rudolfo, Administrative and Development Associate, APIA Vote. This is about Gen Z, millennials. So those of us who are seasoned and seasoneder. This is about all of us coming together. So we're so glad to have young people come on behalf of APIA Vote. Julie Wu, Programs Associate, Youth Ambassadors Program. Elise Bryant. Thank you so much, my sister, who is anointed in the movement. And so we're so glad to have our labor sister, President Coalition of Labor Union Women with us. And Sonia Vasquez Luna, board member, Labor Council for Latin American Advancement, board member, C. Podemos Fund. I hope I got that right. And last, for this next group, Holly Holiday, President, Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote. And then Dr. Cole, then we have another core group that will come up after them.
Hi everyone, my name is Julie Wu.
And I'm Robin Rodolfo.
And we're here today representing APIA Vote, a national nonpartisan organization that works to mobilize Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in electoral and civic participation. Since our founding in 2007, we've worked with our partners and student organizations in over 28 states to break the perception that our communities are not interested in voting. In reality, we have been excluded from this basic right because of a lack of outreach, lack of language accessibility, and limited options to casting a ballot early. APIs have overcome many obstacles to make our voices heard. Today, we celebrate being a part of the historic turnout of API voters in 2020 general election. This success was driven in large part by the historic surge of API women and young AAPIs who came out and made their voices heard, whether they voted early, by mail, or in person. In addition to turning out at the polls, young AAPIs were active in serving as the trusted messengers in their personal circles and local communities. From having conversations with their families and peers, finding and providing translations and resources to their parents and elders, and calling low propensity AAPI voters to ensure that they were prepared to vote, and much more.
Thank you, Julie. Early and mail-in voting allows people with limited English proficiency in our communities to have the time to talk with their families and accesses the resources they need to understand and exercise their right to vote. My own family of first responders in New York City relied heavily on the mail-in vote when they were too afraid to walk outside their front doors, much less go to the polls. In fact, 73% of AAPIs used early voting and vote-by-mail options in 2020, more than any other racial group. And yet now there are laws to restrict these options. Over half of 18 to 29-year-olds also used early voting and vote-by-mail options, as many are in college and away from home, as we've heard before. Just as we are celebrating the achievements of 2020, state legislatures across the country are quickly working to restrict voting access. They restrict these options and say that student IDs, for example, do not qualify as valid voter IDs. They also are requiring extraneous and dangerous ID requirements that will put immigrant communities under greater scrutiny based on stereotypical ideas that Asians are perpetual foreigners. Make no mistake, these laws do not strengthen or expand our democracy. When we know AAPIs, women, and young people are disproportionately hurt by these laws, and yet they still pass, we know why. To prevent people like us from making our voices heard.
The threats facing our democracy right now are very, very real. Call your senator today, call your congressperson today, and tell them to support the For the People Act and John Lewis Voting Rights Act if we are to save our democracy. We cannot wait another moment. Let's ensure that Black, Latino, Indigenous, Asian, Pacific Islander, disabled, young, senior, and all Americans have their freedom to vote protected before it's too late. Thank you.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is
what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Good afternoon, sisters, brothers, siblings, comrades, family. I am a union woman, just as strong as I can be. I do not like the bosses, and the bosses don't like me. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me, which side are you on? Which side are you on? I bring you greetings on behalf of the members of the Coalition of Labor Union Women. When we were founded in 1974, we came out of that convention and said, a woman's place is in her union. Now we say, a woman's place is in the Supreme Court. A woman's place is in the House of Representatives. A woman's place is in the Senate. A woman's place is in the White House, and we coming for it. We stand on the shoulders of the ancestors who stepped off the ships, kissed the ground, and willed us to be here. We stand on the shoulders of the Sojourner Truth, Ida B. Wells, Nannie Helen Burroughs, Gloria Johnson, Shirley Chisholm, and 108 years ago, when the white suffragists planned a march in Washington, they said the black woman would have to stand in the back of the march. We couldn't march with them. Ida B. Wells said, oh, hell no. And she marched with her sisters from Chicago in the rest of the march. That's what we're here for. We're standing up. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved until every block, every roadblock, every immoral and illegal block to our right to vote is stopped in its tracks. All the speakers before me have talked about why we need to do this, and we know we're here to pass the For the People Act. Voting is a right, not a privilege. And for the people who say that the time for unions is over, I say to you, look at the Constitution of the United States. What's the first line? We the people, in order to form a more perfect what? What? They didn't say organization. They didn't say association. They said union. And that means you and I on, y'all. Okay? So we're going to pass this act. We're going to pass the John Lewis Act in honor of that brother and his spirit and all those workers with him who fought. If somebody had told me when I was growing up in Southwest Detroit that I'd be standing across from the Supreme Court talking about the right to vote and voter suppression, I would not have believed them. But here we are. But I stand here on the shoulders of my ancestors. In the words of Mari Evans, let me close. I am a black woman, tall as a cypress, strong beyond all definition, still defying place and time and circumstance, assailed, impervious. Look upon me and be renewed. Vote. Pass the For the People Act now. Thank you.
Hello. Enough is enough. I think this is enough. It is time for Congress to pass federal voting rights legislation now. We don't want it tomorrow. We don't want it in the future. We want it now. But what can you do from home or from wherever you are? You need to call your U.S. Senator. The phone number is 202-224-3121, urging to pass the People Act, H.R. 1, S1, and the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act. My name is Sonia Luna, and I'm a chairwoman of the LACLA Si Podemos Fund, and also I'm a board member of LACLA. We continue to be committed and to fight against discriminatory laws and practices. We want to protect, help, and to promote laws. They open up for all the voters to be able to use their right. Everyone has the right to be heard at the ballot. The ballot has a voice for you, regardless of the color, the age, the zip code where you live, or your ethnicity. We must ensure that all Americans have equal right to say and to elect their officials, whether it's a local or in the national level. Please stand up. Whether if you are watching this online or on Facebook or on any social media, stand up, speak up, make your elected officials accountable for what they do. It has been too long. We need to pass the act. So take your phone and call 202-224-3121. Yes, we can make a difference. Sí podemos. Juntos podemos. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We are here for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to take action. What we need to do, pass the For the People Act. What we need to do, pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. How are we going to do it? With all of us. With all of us. We stand here today as black women, but we stand here in coalition with everyone, because they're not just trying to take away our rights, they're trying to take away our representation. If you want to see representation in your state house, pass voting rights. If you want to see representation in your governor's house, pass voting rights. If you want to see representation in Congress, pass voting rights. If you want to return representation to the Senate, pass voting rights. And we already know what's next, the White House and the Supreme Court. I'm Holly Holiday from Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote, and we're here to do one thing, and that's take action. Go to blackwomentake.action.org to get your information. Thank you.
Are you ready, my Sora? This is a joy for me to bring now to this microphone Kimberly Robinson, attorney Kimberly Robinson, who is a commissioner with the National Social Action Commission of Delta, Sigma, Theta, Sorority. And then we will bring to the mic our sister Arlene Holt Baker, board member of the Advancement Project. I'm looking at your sister Joy, my sister Joy Cheney, executive director of the Washington Bureau, senior vice president for policy and advocacy of the National Urban League. Bring it in, sisters. Oh, we want everybody to speak. My apologies. We also have with us Christy Patton Foster. This sister is the executive director of the Links Incorporated. And then rounding it out, we're going to hear from Sharon Bland of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. Sarah.
Thank you, Dr. Cole. Good afternoon. My Marsha Fudge voice. Good afternoon. I am Kimberly Robinson, as you heard, a member of the National Social Action Commission of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and I'm here today on behalf of our national president and CEO, Beverly Evans Smith. With over 350,000 initiated members of Delta Sigma Theta, including the incredible Melanie Campbell, Janetta Cole, and many of the women who are gathered here today, and over 1,000 chapters worldwide, Delta stands with our sister organizations and allies speaking out against voter suppression tactics. Black women and our allies are standing up and speaking out against voter suppression and calling for the passage of the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act and the For the People Act. Why are these acts important? The John R. Lewis Voting Advancement Act seeks to restore full protections of the original bipartisan Voting Rights Act of 1965, which was reauthorized by Congress in 2006,
but gutted by that Supreme Court in 2013. Following the Shelby County decisions, we saw states across the country passing voting suppression bills that disproportionately affected minority, elderly, and young voters. The John R. Lewis bill will restore tools that address the discriminatory practices and protect the right of all Americans to vote. The new formula it will instill will be critical to addressing historic voter rights suppression actions taken by states in this country and ensure equitable access to voting going forward. The For the People Act also stands as an important piece of legislation and seeks to expand Americans' access to the ballot box, reducing the influence of big money in politics, strengthening ethics rules, and adding additional anti-corruption measures to the law for the purpose of fortifying our democracy. John R. Lewis was a proud member of the Divine Nine, and he dedicated his life and risked his life fighting for the right to vote. He was an incredible advocate and public servant who worked tirelessly for the equitable treatment of all Americans. Together, these two important bills will secure access to the ballot box and protect the voting rights of every American. Their passage will honor his legacy. Deltas all over the world stand in solidarity, and we will not be moved until justice is done. We call on Congress to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the For the People Act now. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Arlene Holt-Baker, and I think they're about to clean the mic here, sanitize us. Arlene Holt-Baker, and I wear many hats. But today I am here representing the Advancement Project, our national office. When we were founded over 20 years ago, we were founded based on making sure that every vote was counted in Florida. You know, sisters and brothers, and I'm saying this to those here and all around this nation that are listening to us today, it just shouldn't have to be this hard. Enough is enough. I will be 70 years old in September, and I was born in Fort Worth, Texas, which was at the time of Jim Crow, and I thought we had made some advancements. But enough is enough. We shouldn't have to still be in the streets, in our state houses, in the courts, and in the halls of Congress, advocating and suing for our right to vote. But here we are, we the people who have believed in America's dream and promise, despite laws that make us the victims of America's ugly, discriminatory, darker side. We're sick and tired of being tired, America. We are troubled, America. We are weary, America, but we shall not be moved. The Advancement Project National Office, led by our Executive Director, Judith Brown-Dianis, and our board, stands shoulder to shoulder with our allies in demanding Congress do its job. We will continue to demonstrate and we will continue to litigate on behalf of our citizens who are being denied our rights to vote. It's time, in fact, it's past time, to pass the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. What's more important to you, Congress? Protecting the filibuster or our right to vote? There can be no more excuses. You either believe in the rights of all the citizens of this country to be able to vote, or you support those state legislatures who have passed and are trying to pass regressive Jim Crow voting rights laws. You know, every January, Dr. Cole, I read this story to my granddaughter, who was 3 at the time, Kinsey, about Dr. King and the struggle. And in there it's references to Jim Crow. And when she was 3 years old, she said, Nana, who is Jim Crow? And I had to quickly try to explain this to a 3-year-old. And I said, well, he was a guy that wouldn't have wanted you to go to school with the friends you go to school with now. He didn't want your great-grandmother to be able to vote. And Mackenzie looked at me and said, oh, Nana, he wasn't nice. Who among you in Congress wants it on your legacy that you didn't have the guts to protect the right of all the people to vote, and that democracy died on your watch? I refuse to have to tell my 9-year-old granddaughter, Kinsey, that mean man, Jim Crow, is back because of the United States Congress. Pass the For the People Act and the John Lewis Act now. If you don't do it for us, do it for our children, do it for our democracy.
Good afternoon. Safety first. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? My name is Joy Cheney, and I am here on behalf of the National Urban League. And for more than a century, the Urban League has been fighting for democracy, civil rights, and economic justice. And we have always been on the side of the people in urban America, suburban America, rural America, wherever you are. And this is the time for us all to be together for voting rights. Earlier today, I testified about economic disparity and fair growth. And then I came here and I thought, my goodness, it's been a busy day. But nothing is more connected than those two. If we do not have the right to vote, we won't have a closing of economic disparity. We won't have fair and equitable growth. It matters who is in Congress. Speaker Pelosi created that select committee. If she was not there, who would have created that committee? Not one Republican showed up today for the hearing. It matters who's in Congress. It matters who's in Congress. It matters that you have the right to vote, and no one knows it better than those who would seek to get in the way and to obstruct and make it more difficult and to create Olympic-sized hurdles to us being able to vote. But we know something they don't. We are committed to voting, and nothing makes people want to vote more than you trying to take it away from them. I have not heard any of foolishness about not wanting to vote any recently. Has anybody heard that? No, all those voices have evaporated because they threatened our right to vote. Silly on their part. But now we've got to make good on it. We have got to require those that we did put in office, those who we went out and supported last fall, to pass the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Both are important. They're in sequencing. For the People Act has to go first. It has to go first because in the fall we'll be dealing with redistricting, and if we do not get it right, we will regret it for the next 10 years. And then we have to do the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act because the Supreme Court has undermined it. Not once, but 3 times. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Good afternoon. My name is Christy Patton Foster. I'm the Executive Director of the Links Incorporated. I stand before you this afternoon alongside the other partner organization representing our organization. It's an organization started 75 years ago by 2 friends to promote friendship and service. Friends like Dr. Janetta Cole and others who are members of our organization. We have over 16,000 African American women as members, and we want action, and we are taking action. Voter suppression in our communities has been a long-standing issue in the history of this nation. For far too long, forces have fought hard to make us feel like we're not important, but we are. The 2020 presidential election, however, showed us that we will no longer be pushed aside and we will raise our voices. Now is the time to do all that we can to show our support for the most significant voting rights and democracy reform in more than half a century. When large numbers of everyday people contact members of Congress, our elected officials are more inclined to listen to the people who put them in office. And our members are doing just that, making phone calls, sending letters and emails. Bills are often inspired because everyday citizens champion an issue important to them. We can have a direct impact on our democracy by contacting our representatives and explaining why the For the People Act is important to you. We've all said today, and I say it too, let's pass the For the People Act and the John Lewis Act now. We demand the vote because our voice, our vote is our power. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sharon Wilder. I got a name change last month. I'm a proud member of the DC chapter of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. I am honored to be here on behalf of our national president, Virginia Harris. And I also just want to say that I am with my fellow women on this panel that are members of Delta Sigma Theta and the Links Incorporated. The National Coalition advances and advocates on behalf of Black women and girls to promote leadership, development, and gender equity in the areas of health, education, and economic empowerment. NCBW's vision is to create a world where social economic inequities do not exist. I am here today to continue to push our vision closer to reality. Our right to vote is sacred. As African Americans, our great-grandfathers, our great-grandmothers fought tirelessly to our right to vote. It is our duty to make sure their work not only goes unturned, but their work gets advanced. We must pick up this torch and continue to advocate for our rights. The National Coalition of 100 Black Women Incorporated challenges all efforts and tactics that threaten our democracy and limit the ability of voters to exercise their right to vote. NCBW stands with over 5 million women across this country speaking out against voter suppression and calling for the passage of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the For the People Act. NCBW will continue to combat voter suppression through advocacy, grassroots organizing, and legal action, and our efforts will continue to result in the protection of voting rights and ballot access for millions of African Americans. Thank you.
You are here. Dr. Ife Williams, you are here. If I had seen you, you know we would have called you. This microphone is yours. So good to see you.
Thank you. Just another Delta. Let me just say, there is an African proverb that says, it is the women who hold the sky up. My sisters who've come before me have been holding the skies up for a long time. We know that it is our duty to protect those that we love. I represent the National Congress of Black Women. We were founded by Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm and Dr. C. Dolores Tucker. And you know, at this point they would say all that these women have said today. We stand with them. We're for the John Lewis Act. We are for the People Act. It's time for us to go out and do it now. Thank you. God bless you. I love you.
Which side what? Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
The side of justice. All right, thank you. These were our sisters. We the people stand united for voting rights. We have Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who's on her way, will be here any minute. But while we wait on her to arrive, and I know she's en route, we ask Halima Peru, our soul sister, spiritual, anointed sister, to come and give us inspiration.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, one day, when the work is done, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory. Oh, glory. Oh, glory. Yeah. Oh, glory. One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, one day, when this work is done, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory. Oh, glory. We will feel glory. Glory. Now the war is not over and the fight is not done, but we'll keep pressing and pressing, and we'll keep going on, and we'll cry glory, and we will cry glory. Ooh, glory. Oh, that will be one day. When the work is done, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, one day, when the work is done, we will be sure. We will be sure. Glory. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I've already come. It's grace that brought me safe thus far, and it will be grace that will lead me on. Keep going. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, with no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun.
Thank you, Halima. Thank you, thank you. And so, our final segment of our discussion and our speak out is about how we have overcome. We have come this far by faith. So as we prepare to march on, or step on, or walk on, or run on for voting rights, it is my honor and pleasure to bring on Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, co-chair of the National African American Clergy Network, and Reverend Hyapin M., founder, president, and CEO, Faith and Community Empowerment, FACE. Dr. Barbara, Reverend Hyapin.
Thank you, Melanie. You're our shero, and we praise God for you. The civil rights movement, the movement for justice and human rights, has been built on a foundation, a strong foundation of faith, prayer, fasting, marching. And so what I think is appropriate to begin this segment to share a prayer for voting rights. And let's just reflect. Whatever your faith tradition is, we are serving a God who loves us all. So let's just anchor our hearts right now and focus. In some silence right now would be helpful. O Lord our God, the anchor of our soul, the rock in a weary land, and the author of justice and righteousness. Black women leaders and our allies ask you today to turn the hearts of those who render unjust laws and cruel public policies, denying our sacred right to vote. God, today, God, right now, we ask you the question, are you not the God in heaven? Are you not the creator of heaven and earth who hold all power, authority, and might in your hand? Lord, we ask you to turn the hearts, the stony hearts of congressional and state leaders who dare devalue and demean the sacred voting rights of Black, Latino, Asian, Indigenous, elderly, poor, students, and disabled Americans. God, today, Lord, your servants and patriot, Frederick Douglass asked the question in 1852, what to the Negro is the 4th of July when millions of Black people were still enslaved and could not celebrate? Well, today, God, we raise our collective voices and ask you, what to people of color and vulnerable Americans is a democracy without our right to vote? We lament, we sorrow, we pain, we cry silent tears, just knowing it will no longer be a democracy but a sheer tyranny if white minority rule replaces the right of all Americans to vote in this multiracial society. The ancient psalmist asked the question we are asked here today. If the foundations of law and order have collapsed, what will the righteous do? And the answer then, as now, is the same. The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent. And the answer is still that God is on the throne, that the battle is not ours, it's his. And he never loses a battle when we turn to him. Organize, respect one another, come together, old and young, Black and white and Asian, Latino, Indigenous. all standing for justice and righteousness. That is the God of our weary years and silent tear today. We are believing you right now. If we come together with our white allies, we will win in the end. We praise you and we give you the glory. In Jesus' matchless name. Amen, amen, amen. And now it's my pleasure to introduce my sister by another mother, Reverend Hapin Im. When the Asians were attacked so viciously recently, and I looked up and there was a young black man on a metro doing the attacking, and then there were white people attacking. I said, God, as a black woman, it's my time to act. Because if any American is being mistreated, it's our time, black women, to act. And so it's my pleasure to bring you one of the foremost Asian leaders in our nation for Stop Asian Hate and for solidarity with black Americans, my sister, Reverend Hapin Im. Reverend Im.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Hapin Im. I run a nonprofit called Faith and Community Empowerment. And we celebrate our 20th anniversary with over 800 partners from White House to Fortune 500. Why I say this is because the model for our organization has been with the model from an African-American church, First AME Church of Los Angeles. So my walk with the black community has been long, and it has been very powerful. And as Dr. William Skinner mentioned, that this afternoon we were able to do a PSA statement, standing in solidarity. I think as a believer, it is powerful that when God blessed Abraham, he said, I will bless you to bless all nations. And so for each of us who are privileged, whether we're white, black, Asian, Latino, whatever color we may be, that we have this responsibility to bring others along. And so this fight for voting rights is something that we should all fight for. Because when all the colors shine brightly, we are all truly blessed. As an Asian American woman, I cannot help but realize that our ability to vote did not happen until 1952, 3 decades after the 19th Amendment passed. Our ability to marry, our ability to buy property, our ability to protect ourselves, even as citizens of this country, did not happen because we did not have our right to vote. Representation matters. And for each of us, again, we have this God-given responsibility to bring all of us along. And so again, I thank you for this allyship that will bless the country and the world. God bless you.
Dr. Cole? Thank you, Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner and Reverend, I want to get it right, Hapin Im. Thank you. So Dr. Cole, who do we have coming next before we do this march on for voting rights? Or stroll on?
See. Who might possibly? Could it be somebody in the Congress of the United States of America? Could it be perhaps the most long-standing, vigorous vote that we can give would be not to live in Texas, but to vote you in whenever you need to be voted in. Oh, our dear Shira, you are here. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
The one thing I can say is I look at the beauty of the women that are here, that we are ready to go. And so you can be assured that I want to get right where you are, right in the middle of adversity, right in the middle of strife, right in the middle of obstacles and mountains and valleys, because I had to do a lot to get off the floor of the United States Congress. I was not going to deny the support for our faithful law enforcement officers in the aftermath of the insurrection. So please know that I had to stay there and cast that vote for those who are harmed and injured and those who are now healing. Because, you know, when we begin to protest, some people want to juxtapose against us that we are angry against the values of this nation. Not one of my beautiful sisters, the black women leaders and allies and all of their supporters, faith leaders and others, have ever stood against what is right. And as the Honorable Reverend Barbara Williams Skinner said, when she saw something that was wrong, with all of her unmighty strength, but yet her strength in God, she wanted to do something about it. She wanted to maybe be able to teach our young people that there is a better way. And so the reason why we're out here today is to be able to say to you that no one should dismiss civil disobedience as a valid and important aspect of our strength and our power. Because if we look to the words of the likes of Sojourner Truth, who stood in the back of the room and said, "Ain't I a woman? I've borne 13 children and seen most all sold into slavery, but ain't I a woman?" An abolitionist, a suffragette, and a faithful American. And then, of course, we saw Harriet Tubman do what she had to do. And then women unnamed and unknown who stayed in slavery for 246 years. Let it be known as we march today, we march in those unknown names. We give them dignity and credibility. The soil in the Deep South, unmarked graves, mothers, babies, grandparents who were not given the dignity of a human being and just dropped in the dirt. And so we march today. We march on the Voting Rights Act. I want people to know that it is more comprehensive even than that, but it is so valuable to be able to emphasize that if a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit difficult, a little bit hot, oh God help us, a little bit wet, we are going to be there. And so as I come today, I finish. As I said to you, I not, Melanie, to be here longer than long, but let me do just a roll call very quickly. Let me just do a roll call very quickly. Voting rights is the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Voting rights is an economic agenda that deals with the empowering of all people. Voting rights is to tell our young students that the student debt that is burdening them can be relieved. Voting rights is to tell college students that you can vote, and local county governments cannot stop you from voting all over America. Voting rights is voting rights for not just to go and vote, but to empower and to make that birthright given to you by the 15th Amendment. Why do we forget the Constitution? The fundamental right that President Biden talked about is embedded in the Constitution. 13th Amendment said no more slaves in America. Tragically, the journey has not ended to end that stigma. The 14th Amendment said that due process is owed you and that you had freedom. And then let it be very clear, I walk with this in my pocket. I walk with this in my purse. Barbara Jordan said, keep that Constitution. Because when someone came up to this tall and regal woman and said, what do you people want? Barbara Jordan said, I simply want what you want, the promise of America. So the 15th Amendment says the rights of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be abridged by the United States or by any state or on account of color or previous condition of servitude. But it says in Section 2, the Congress, I didn't say our friends across the street, I didn't say my church, I didn't say my social club, I didn't say my neighborhood, though I love them dearly. I didn't even say social activist groups. It said the Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Where is the Voting Rights Act? We are standing in the gap. We cast no anger. We only cast instructions. We cast a charge. We are charging you to get the job done. And I simply close by saying that there are many black women, but we all know that there was one who stood with us, and he was a man that embraced the power of women. I never saw John Lewis step in front of a black woman. He was always eager to stand alongside of you. And so I just wanted to end to give us this kind of charge as we go forward. Taken out of the book that I used in front of the Supreme Court, carry on, carry on, carry on in spite of what comes against you. Listen to these words. There may be a time when history calls upon you. My sisters, it is now. It is tomorrow. It is next week. It is until the justice of this nation rolls down like mighty waters. There may be a time when history calls upon you. There may be an injustice that has hurt your friends or fellow citizens. How will you respond? Will you support those who are oppressed by listening to the voice within? That is the courage. Leave where you are. Come to this place. You will find the courage and power to do what is right, even if it is unpopular at this time. Nobody wants to see us marching. You're unpopular. Get used to it. This inner courage will command you to respond to fighting with peace and respond to hate with love. Unpopularity is a badge of honor. I stand as an unpopular person fighting to ensure that those who cannot speak for themselves, those incarcerated, those of different religious backgrounds, those afraid to walk up to the polling place even with a legitimate voting registration card, fearful of what may happen to them, fearful of this debate, fearful that they'll be targeted. I walk in their name, and I walk in the names of those who never got an opportunity for 246 years to raise their head and their face to the sun and to be able to stand with us. I walk in the name of H.R. 40, the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals. I walk for the silent. I walk for those who will be silenced. I walk to give them light and to give them strength. Carry on.